Right, it's 9:09. We'll let these children in. I'm hungry and I need this coffee. Hello, children. Sort of children. Most of you are legally adults at this point. Ian's here. Corey's here. Yay. Christian's here. Brendan is not. Where's Brendan? Hayward. No. Troy. Yeah. Eli. Nate. Charles. Sterling. And on Darius. Sterling's trying to join anyway. I'll give him a minute here, see if they show up. She would make a Puritan of the devil if he should cheapen a kiss of her. I looked this up and they were talking about this prostitute who I guess doesn't want to be a prostitute anymore. Huh? And she's basically like getting really Christian. And so she doesn't want to do her job anymore because she thinks it's not good. And she's like, the guys who are talking about her are like, oh, well, she's so pious now that she could convert the devil to Christianity if he tried to kiss her. Yeah. I posted a new one the other day. It was one of my favorite ones. I guess it was Wednesday. And it was, hell is empty and all the devils are here. I think about that sometimes particularly when I'm around a lot of middle schoolers.
Well, demons are
Makes
technically
sense.
angels.
What?
Demons are technically angels.
Oh.
They're just fallen angels. It keeps giving me that recording in progress thing.
I know. I think they like changed the law or something regarding Zoom so that people would not be recorded without their knowledge, which makes sense. But it does it all the time now. Okay, and I see that some of y'all have turned in your essays. I think I've got 6 or 7 essays. There's 11 of us in this class. So as of today, you can get 90%. Also, if you turned it in, some of you guys turned it in at like 2:30 in the morning. I'm still going to count that as yesterday.
Did you get my vocab test?
No.
I turned it in yesterday.
I do have your vocab test, but I do not have Eli's. Okay, so today we are going to look at a poem, and yes, just one poem for the whole class, but it's a long poem, and it's a very good poem. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of torn between saying it's really easy and it's really hard because it's kind of both. The language that he uses is really, it's 20th century, it's super easy to comprehend, but there will definitely be points where you're like, what is this guy talking about? This is very strange. So first, I just want to tell you a little bit about T.S. Eliot. Not much, because I don't know all that much, but he is one of the more popular 20th century, like early 20th century writers, like 1920s. And he's somebody that I can teach in both American and British literature because he's kind of both. He was born in America, but when he was a young man, he moved to England and he liked it so much better than he liked America that he was like, I'm going to stick here and I'm going to get a dual citizenship. So he's both. And if you hear him talk, he sounds British. So I'm very surprised that he was born in Missouri. So we're gonna read this poem, and actually there's a lovely audio version. There's actually like, this is a very famous poem, and there's a lot of different renditions of it with different people reading it. So I found Tom Hiddleston, who plays Loki in the Marvel movies, and he's gonna read it to us. Is he dead? Oh, he is dead, isn't he? Loki? Loki is dead. He's got that show now, but it's like a prequel, isn't it? Okay. I haven't watched it yet. I don't remember. What movie did he die in? Oh.
Let's start at Infinity War.
He died in Infinity War? Oh.
He got snapped.
Oh,
but
okay.
then he came back, and then I forget how he died, but it was a very courageous and
Loki.
Like he died for real. After he like sacrificed.
Yeah,
That's yeah.
He tried to kill Thanos with the staff.
Mm-hmm.
Thanos caught him. Just snapped his neck.
Oh. Oh wow. I didn't remember that. That's really sad.
Yeah, that's right.
It was continuing after the Ragnarok.
Okay.
In the ship with that's when
But then he
Hulk
comes
had to go.
back after they go back in time.
Yeah, he was there.
I know. I forgot that too.
Yeah, they go back in time and reverse everything.
I had forgotten that. Yeah. Also, like I kind of get the different movies confused. Like they kind of blur together.
Right.
Especially because there's like multiverses and stuff. So I'm like, which thing happened in which movie? And I can't really keep it all straight. Well, that's very sad. Loki is probably my favorite person in the Marvel universe because he's just such a smart ass. I love him. He's so clever. I love it. But he's gonna not Loki in character, but the guy who plays him is gonna read this poem to us. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys because we're gonna pull up the poem, but also hear him. We're not like watching him do it or anything. And I want to explain a little bit of the beginning of this poem. So I've published it on Canvas, and I'm gonna open it over here. Whoop. So you can see here that the beginning is in Italian. We don't know Italian, so we have to kind of translate it. And it's actually a quote from Dante's Inferno. Does anybody know what Dante's Inferno is? Can you give me a brief explanation?
It's basically a story of what happens to you after you die.
Yes. Yes.
I totally understand what that says.
Oh wow, you're doing better than me. Yeah, Dante, it's a very old piece of Italian writing, and he writes about descending into the 9 circles of hell and like seeing which one, like what each one is about, and like each circle of hell is reserved for like different types of sinners. And I had to read it in college, but I don't really remember like what the different circles were about. But he like has a guide the whole time. And so this quote, and Tom Hiddleston will read it to us again, but
It's a scary book.
it is scary. Yeah, it is a scary book. Just like knowing what all horrors await those of you who are going to hell. I mean, yeah, it's pretty terrifying. And so this basically says, if I thought that my reply would be to someone who would ever return to Earth, this flame would remain without further movement. But as no one has ever returned alive from this gulf, if what I hear is true, I can answer you with no fear of infamy. So in Dante's Inferno, Dante is saying this to somebody who's in hell, and he's basically saying like, because I know you're going to be in hell for the rest of your existence, I'll tell you this thing that I'm about to say. If I were worried that it would get back to people I know, then I would be more inclined to not tell you. And so that's how he starts this poem, which sort of just shows us that like this poem is going to be some kind of confession, or it's going to tell us something that the narrator would not normally tell somebody. He wants it to be sort of a secret. So it's going to be like fairly personal. For the record, J. Alfred Prufrock is not anybody. He's just a fictional character, but I think it's probably kind of like it's supposed to be like a parallel to his own life, because his name is T.S. Eliot and he would sign things T. Stearns Eliot. Also, T.S. Eliot, for those of you who don't know, did y'all see the movie Cats? You know of it, right? He wrote the book of poetry, which it's called Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, I think. And he wrote all these poems about different cats, and they really, really changed it. And Andrew Lloyd Webber made it into that musical, which then got made into a movie, which is horrible. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the best-selling Broadway shows of all time, but I don't even get why. Like it's so weird. And then the movie version of it is just so, it's like kind of gross. I don't know. It's so strange. But it's based off of these poems that T.S. Eliot wrote, and I doubt ever intended it to be a Broadway musical or a movie featuring Rebel Wilson and James Corden. So we're going to read this poem, or we're going to let Tom Hiddleston read this poem and follow along. We'll probably just read it once. I was going to have us read it twice, but I think it's a pretty long poem, so I think we're just going to do it the one time. Let me get him started.
Next is one of the 20th century's most noted poets, T.S. Eliot, born in Missouri, USA, who moved to England at the age of 25. Many of T.S. Eliot's works contain historical literary reference, and this is a poem that comes with an epigraph from Dante's Inferno. Dante wrote this first paragraph in Italian, hereby presented with an English translation. If I thought that my reply was someone who would ever return to earth, this flame would remain without further movement. But as no one has ever returned alive from this gulf, if what I hear is true, I can answer you with no fear of infamy.
Okay. Take it away.
Dante writes about being trapped and a concern with self-image and reputation, which T.S. Eliot channels as the theme of his own poem.
Keep that in mind.
The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot.
Music.
Let us go then, you and I. When the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit.
Oh my gosh, sorry.
In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo.
Hang on, I'm gonna pause it for a sec. I had this done because I had it like color coded, and in previous years I've like assigned a little section to everybody, and I'm not gonna do that this year. But silly me, I didn't even think about it. I was like, why is there this huge gap? There is not. There was gonna be, and actually there still is one in Power School, but I'm not gonna do it. we're listening to the story. We are gonna talk about what we think it means. We're gonna watch another little video that kind of analyzes it. But I'm gonna run this back to when he starts doing the poem again, so we can listen to all of it at once. But keep in mind that he said the sort of the central theme is like self-reflection and like sort of like low self-esteem.
Which T.S. Eliot, if what I and a concern with self-image and
Concern with
reputation,
self-image.
which T.S. Eliot channels as the theme of his own poem. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. Let us go then, you and I. When the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me. And time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare? And do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with a bald spot in the middle of my hair that will say how his hair is growing thin. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. For I have known them all already, known them all. Have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume? And I have known the eyes already, known them all. The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. When I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways? And how should I presume? And I have known the arms already, known them all. Arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. How should I then presume? And how should I begin? Shall I say, I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows? I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. And the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head, grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I've seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I've seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. And would it have been worth it after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me? Would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am a Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one, settling a pillow by her head, should say, that is not what I meant at all. That is not it at all. And would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this, and so much more? It is impossible to say just what I mean, but as if a magic lantern threw the nerves in patterns on a screen. Would it have been worthwhile if one, settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl, and turning toward the window, should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be.
Hamlet.
I'm an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious, and meticulous, full of high sentence with a bit of juice, at times, indeed, almost ridiculous, almost at times a fool. I grow old. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I've heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by seagulls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown.
Good job, Tom Hiddleston. You read the heck out of that. Beautiful. Okay, so if you feel like you have no idea what this is about, don't stress out. One of the most common,
It seemed like it was about absolutely nothing.
it's a lot of rambling, and I mean, I feel like it is a little stream of consciousness-y. But one of my favorite reactions that I've gotten, and I've gotten it more than once, is when we hear this poem and students will be like, I don't know what that meant, but it sounded really cool. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. Like, it is really lovely language. Like he said, I really like his imagery. His vocabulary is impeccable. And I mean, I love just phrases like, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. That's such a weird comparison, because you think about like oh, it's lovely, like the evening sky, but a patient etherized upon a table is like really almost depressing. Like, what's the patient doing on the table? Any ideas what overall this is about?
Nope, there are none ideas about what this is about. This is about pretty words.
Chip has no idea. He says it's not about anything. And keep in mind, they did tell us first that it's about, or like the central theme is sort of like self-image and like coming to terms with yourself.
Could it be psychiatry?
What?
Could it be about psychiatry?
Psychiatry? How, what makes you think that?
Like a patient etherized upon a table.
I mean, well, I'm looking at more than just that line. I want to know what you guys think overall, like what it could be about.
Then I have no idea.
Okay, that's fair. So I think there are a few parts that do kind of give us some kind of narrative. Now, first of all, he's addressing it to someone. Let us go then, you and I. And we don't really know who the you is, but he's sort of addressing this whole thing to someone. But it is very, oh, apparently he's addressing it to Troy. You can kind of see that he does go sort of in and out of stream of consciousness, and sometimes it doesn't really seem like he's talking to the other person. There's a lot of stuff in this poem about women, and I think it's pretty safe to assume that he is addressing it to some woman. We don't need to know who, it's fine.
Let us go then, you and I. That's important.
Let us go then, you and I. Or maybe he's addressing it to readers. Maybe he's saying like, join me on this journey I'm about to tell you about. Could be either one. I'm not going to go through this like line by line or anything, so we're actually going to watch a video about it. But just to kind of like hit some of the, this is my favorite poem. Is my favorite poem. Yes.
Wow. So you maybe know it.
I do know what it means. Yes. And I first came across this poem, and this probably has something to do with why it's my favorite poem. I mean, I really do love it, but my freshman year of college, this guy that I was like really in love with gave me a book of poetry, and he was like, this is the one you should read. And I was like, oh, he gets me, but I do love it. I loved it then, I love it now. So he's addressing someone, and I think he asks a lot of questions in this poem. And the first one he says, do not ask what is it, let us go and make our visit. Like, let's go see these people. And he sort of describes this room where women are coming and going. Again, like there's a lot of stuff about women. This is kind of, this stanza is sort of showing some dirty imagery, like not adult dirty, but like soot and grossness.
Yeah.
Yellow fog, yellow smoke, smoke
I don't
that
like rhyming window panes with window panes.
I know, I don't love that either. It's probably my least favorite thing about this poem.
I also don't like the recurrence of in the room and the women come and go talking to Michelangelo that only
repeats
once.
once. You think it's going to be like a refrain, but then it isn't.
I don't like that either.
So he's kind of negative about what he's doing. He's like describing it in gross ways. But I think it kind of starts, the main theme kind of starts here. There will be time to prepare. Basically, this is one of those things. It's like, what's that? I think it's a Bible verse where it's like everything has a season, and he's like, there's going to be time to do this and that. We have plenty of time to figure out life, basically. But then like later on, he sort of realizes that there's not infinite time. So he starts here where he's asking the questions, do I dare? With a bald spot in the middle of my hair, they will say how his hair is growing thin, which happens as you get older. And we know because Loki told us that this is about the self-image and like mortality. And so like the fact that he is aging is a very big part of this. And this question comes up a couple of times. Do I dare disturb the universe? Should I rock the foundations of everything I know. Should I change my life at this point? I'm old, I'm bald. And we don't quite know what it is yet that he wants to do. Hang on, this is gonna bug me. Fix
No,
that.
leave it.
And then, like next year I'll get to it and be like, what happened here? This is one of the most famous lines from it, and it actually gets referenced in other things. I've known them all already, known them all. I've known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. You know, I might say I've measured out my life in paper cups. You know, it's like, what's the one thing every day that, like, this is the marker, like my day can begin now. And, you know, if that's, I think he's kind of minimizing that, like, I haven't really done anything. You know, my life is not measured out by like all the cool trips I went on or like all the people that I loved. It's just like each day I stir my coffee, there's another day. That's kind of sad. I like that too. So he's talking about how like I've known everybody, like I've seen everybody. So what do I even do at this point in my life? Which we kind of know from our notes the other day that this is a big theme in 20th century literature, not just British literature, but, and I think it even carries on now. This idea that life is maybe not all it's cracked up to be. So we're sort of trying to figure out what our place is in the world. And that's not usually, when people write about that, it's not usually like an optimistic eat, pray, love kind of finding yourself. It's usually like, I'm having a hard time and I don't know who I am. And honestly, that makes for more interesting reading, in my opinion. I had someone ask me one time when I was student teaching, like, why is so much of literature like depressing? Like, why aren't any classic? I think that has a lot to do with it. Like, there aren't many times when people are like, oh, I had a great vacation, let me write about that. Usually people are like, someone I love passed away and it destroyed me and I need to get out the feeling somehow, so let's write about it. I think that has a lot to do with it. And also, like, you got to have some kind of conflict for a story to exist. And happy endings or happy stories don't always have that much conflict. So he's definitely talking about women again here, just the way that I mean, they're braceleted, men can wear bracelets, but I think just this sort of nice imagery, like lovely imagery. And also, is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. Are these women just distracting me? Do I just love women? Yes, he does.
From a dress. That slaps. That's a good line.
Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Do women smell so good that they're making me not able to think? Like, maybe. And then there's like more negative imagery with men, like lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out the windows. And I think he kind of feels some sort of comparison between him and these, you know, there's a reason he's watching them just smoking in their windows. And I love this line. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. Number one, I think that's lovely and has some really good alliteration in it, but also, that's not a creature I'd want to be. Just like a crab or, you know, whatever else has claws, just like not really experiencing much of anything. But he's like, maybe that's what I should have done. That's what I should have been. Just this silent, raggedy claw thing. So again, he's kind of asking here. He always goes back to this, and this is one of the reasons it's like good stream of consciousness. He'll think about like particular scenarios or like parties he's been to, people he's known, but it always comes back to this train of thought. Should I do this? Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? And here's the big thing. I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I've seen the moment of my greatness flicker. I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. The eternal footman capitalized, we're probably talking about death here. So he's basically like, I recognize that I'm old. See, my head has grown slightly bald. And I am coming face to face with my mortality, and I don't like it. I am very afraid to die, which like most of us are. But he keeps asking again, would it have been worth it? And he never quite asks the question, by the way, which I think is interesting. Would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball and roll it towards some overwhelming question? And I mean, this whole thing about Lazarus, whatevs, but he's like, would it have been worth it if this person just said, that's not what I meant at all. That's not it at all. And with all this buildup and all this talk about women, I think he's probably trying to ask, like, should I have said something about how I feel about someone? Like, would it have been worth it to me? Like, I'm just old and alone now. Should I have done something about that? Should I have, yes, it would have changed my life. And it would have knocked me out of my comfort zone, but maybe I should have. But the risk, of course, is rejection. And this person saying, that's not what I meant. Would it have been worth it after all these things? This is a mood. It's impossible to say just what I mean. And he is kind of just like, repeating himself and always coming back to the same questions, but it's just like not enough. Like he can't phrase it the right way. I obviously love this little bit because I love Hamlet, but I also love it just for its sort of like self-awareness. I'm not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. I'm an attendant lord, one that will do to swell progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. What he's saying there is that he recognizes he is not main character. Yeah, he is not main character material.
Look at thing that we're talking, like that's a thing to say now.
Yeah.
Like to tell somebody you have main character energy,
Yeah. Yeah. Like he just thinks he's the main character of his own life, which like you should be the main character of your own life. But
I totally.
yes, somebody said that about LeBron one time.
LeBron is the main
Yeah,
character.
like he thinks he's the
LeBron
main
is the
character
main
of everything.
character of the whole universe.
Yeah. Someone said that about LeBron. I can't remember.
Madison was the first person I heard say that.
I think it might have been Francis. I feel like I have it. I feel like I have it written down in my list of quotes.
Madison was the first person I heard say that.
That also sounds like a Madison thing.
Yeah. But she could have just been repeating that.
Maybe they were both in my AP class last year, so I'd believe that one of them got it from the other. But yeah, he's just like, I'm not a main character. If anything, I might be the fool. Like I'm entertaining sometimes. I might be enough to like start a scene, but I'm not gonna be the main thing. And like I respect the self-awareness, but it's also pretty sad. You want to be the main character of your own life. So here he is. We're nearly at the end here. He's old, trying to figure out what he should do.
Can I just get old and not have my hair fall out, please? That's all I ask.
I know men are very sensitive about that. I've heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. Again, very depressing to be able to hear mermaids, but think that like you're not good enough for them, or like you're not good enough to hear their songs. Oof, rough.
You did not have to phrase it like that. Like,
I do not think they will sing to me. I've seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown till human voices wake us and we drown. It's kind of like living in fantasy until something like makes you come to and like come to real life and realize that it's not all it's cracked up to be. So overall, a very depressing poem, to be honest. But I think number one, I think this is a good poem to do, particularly after yesterday, which I really enjoyed reading y'all's stream of consciousness stuff. That was fun. Some of you revealed a lot. I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some stream of consciousness elements to this poem. This is one of the major poems of the 20th century. We're going to look at a few more poems on Tuesday, but which will have an assignment with it. But also I think it reflects a lot of the qualities that we talked about with 20th century literature. It's very pessimistic, which particularly early 20th century literature really was. I mean, this was probably mid-20s, I would say, that this was written. And, you know, being post-World War I, people didn't know which way was up. They were just trying to like figure out what their place was in the universe. And that actually reminded me of a funny thing. And not being able to figure it out and kind of just like dwelling in their own insecurity and uncertainty. I think this is a really lovely poem that shows that. And I think there are probably times when everybody sort of feels like, am I doing enough with my life? Or like, am I going to come to the end of it and regret things or regret things I didn't do? So I think there are some definite like universal themes in this. We're going to watch a video about it if we have enough time. We don't really have enough time, but we'll start it. You do like this poem? But now you do. Nice. The thing that reminded me of, I think you laughed at the fact that I said people didn't know which way was up. Have you guys seen the movie Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan?
I think I did, but I didn't mean.
It's such a funny movie, first of all, but she's in English class and they're doing Hamlet, and her teacher, like, poor guy, he's just like trying to get answers out of him. Nobody's saying anything. And he asked this one kid, I don't remember what the question was he asked him, but he was like, the kid is just like, oh yeah, Hamlet is like, he's like the main character, you know, I mean, like he's Hamlet, obviously. And he's just like bopping around, doesn't know which way's up. Like, that's not an inaccurate description of Hamlet. Doesn't know which way's up. We're gonna start this video. This guy has a very annoying voice, and I'm sorry about that. Annoying. We won't get to the end of it, but it'll be fine. It's just very perky.
T.S. Eliot's legendary poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, tells
Did we
the
watch something of
twisted,
him?
fragmented story of a man as simultaneously simple and complex as modern life itself. The poem's epigraph is from Dante's Inferno. In Italian, it quotes a character named
I know,
Guido da
right?
Montefeltro, who has been sent to hell for the crime of trying to buy absolution, forgiveness from sin. Montefeltro is ashamed of his sin and believes his story would be
So
with Dante,
mad.
who he doesn't realize is only a visitor to hell. The poem opens with the titular Prufrock proposing that you and I take an evening walk, but it's clear he doesn't see this as a pleasant one. The night sky looks like a patient etherized upon a table. The streets are half deserted. The neighborhood is sordid and shabby. Prufrock tells his companion not to ask what the question is, but just to come along. Prufrock's walk has taken him to a house where the women inside chat about Michelangelo, the Italian painter and sculptor born in the 15th century. He looks out one of the windows and describes the abundant fog surrounding the house like a yellow cat that pokes through various dark places and finally curls itself around the house and falls asleep. Prufrock assures himself that there will be time to wonder, do I dare?
I
This
have
is the
liked
central
it, but
question of the poem,
this has
although
been
what
leaking
Prufrock fears
lately.
to do isn't exactly
I don't
specified.
know what to do
He
about it.
decides he does not dare and heads back downstairs.
Did they
In
replace
this
it?
vision, he sees himself as well dressed, but imagines no one else notices. Behind his back, people may be whispering about his bald spot and his thin arms and legs. Prufrock asks again, do I dare? But this time he adds, do I dare disturb the universe? The couplet that begins, in the rooms the women come and go, appears twice in this section as a way of signaling Prufrock's circling thoughts. Prufrock knows there is time for decisions and revision. He's passed long days making resolutions only to change them. Spent too much time alone at meaningless social events. He's all too familiar with what it's like to make up his mind and then change it. He feels pinned down by the critical scrutiny of an unspecified audience. The eyes may be female, since Prufrock mentions bracelets and skirts, but they could also belong to any observer he perceives as hostile, or even to the malign glance of the universe itself. Prufrock reflects on his physical attraction to an unnamed woman. He pictures her arms, white and bare from a distance, covered with light brown hair when seen up close. He sees the arms at rest or wrapped around a shawl. He wonders if it's her perfume that makes me so digress.
That's how she was
Does he
doing.
mean he's digressing from the matter at hand, his inner turmoil, or from the chance to speak frankly to the woman? Prufrock tries to formulate what he might actually say, wondering if he should explain the challenges of his journey, that he's passed through narrow, lonely streets and seen other lonely men standing at windows. Stunned by his own passivity and stalling, Prufrock abruptly bursts out with a self-loathing lament. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. Prufrock has returned to his circling thoughts and excuses. It's so easy just to do nothing. How, after passing time in such a trivial setting like a tea party, can he awaken his dormant courage to say or do something forceful or meaningful?
I'm gonna skip ahead.
Even though the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock is a poem,
Yeah,
it
I
still
know.
has two central characters, J.
So
Alfred Prufrock himself and an unnamed woman. It's fair to say that most adults would say
You
that
said,
40
like,
is barely middle-aged. J.
Energetic.
Alfred Prufrock would surely disagree. In fact, he's ashamed of aging, expressed in his embarrassment over his thinning hair. Maturity seems to have brought him nothing but self-loathing and a fear of intimacy so great he's in a state of emotional paralysis. Though he has known the arms already, known them all, arms of beautiful women, he does not dare to share his most intimate thoughts for fear of rejection. Prufrock appears to be well-educated and affluent. Money is one of the few things he doesn't seem to worry about. He's proud of his elegant clothes, and he knows how to dress for different occasions. He's clearly a cultivated man as well, effortlessly able to quote various writers. Despite these advantages, he's a powerfully insecure man, and he projects his insecurity onto others, imagining women are making fun of him behind his back and won't understand or care about the things he wants to tell them. Other central character in the famous fragmented poem is the unnamed woman. Prufrock specifically invokes the unnamed woman by referring to her as one. Readers know the person to whom he considers making the startling declaration, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, is a woman because this one is settling a pillow by her head. Her rejection of the statements, not what I meant at all, is repeated as if to emphasize the cruelty of a listener's indifference to such a statement. Prufrock is similarly unable to imagine any women saying anything positive about him. And he seems queasy at the thought of women's actual bodies or faces.
He's
He identifies with Saint John
so
the Baptist,
red.
a biblical project.
J. Alfred
When he
Prufrock.
imagines himself as Lazarus, another biblical character whom Jesus raised from the dead, even after his body had begun to decay, he's referencing how he'd like
He's got so much blood in his head.
What it was like beyond the reach of the living.
Mhm.
He fears her response
I'm like, just
would be even crueler than
relax.
beheading him. Might find his story dull and pointless. Prufrock is once again projecting his own emotions onto others. The magic lantern and mermaids are the most meaningful symbols in the poem The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. In line 105,
In line
Prufrock,
105.
finding it impossible to explain himself once again, wishes he had a magic lantern to throw the nerves and patterns on the screen. Magic lanterns were the forerunners of slide projectors and were generally used at home. They were simple devices in which a light source behind a transparent plate was used to project the plate's image, painted or photographed, onto a
Why is it
large
just a
screen.
bear?
Invented in the mid-17th century, magic lanterns were used until the mid-20th century when slide projectors came onto the market. And back in T.S. Eliot's day, they were extremely popular and could be found in churches, theaters, and homes. The transparent plates that held the images were usually small, but different lenses could be used to make the projected images much larger. In this way,
Okay, while I'd love to hear all the rest of the things he's gonna say, I would rather not hear him say them. I'd rather someone else say them because it's awful. Oh yeah, he does sort of sound like the guy from The Princess Bride. That's true.
Yeah, he does.
Um,
They're just people, they accent the wrong syllables.
yeah, and he's just so overexcited about it. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I'm like, chill out, man. You're getting red in the face. Anyway, I gotta let you guys go because while we won't have a bell today, it's a minute until I have to dismiss you all. So don't forget, don't come to school Monday because it's Memorial Day.
Okay, I will.
All right, well, you'll be the only one. No one can let you in the building because we won't be here. But I'll see you Tuesday. Bye.